Evening, everyone, and welcome to the public board meeting of the Board of Education, SD 72 Campbell River for January 16th, 2024. The Campbell River Board of Education would like to acknowledge that this meeting is taking place on the territory of the Liquidol people. Please note that there is a short production delay between the live event that you are viewing and the meeting participants. The question and answer function is open online for questions on agenda items throughout this meeting, and a final call for questions will be made after the last agenda item. Questions will be addressed at the end of the session. Just to acknowledge that we are missing a few trustees this evening. Trustee Briggs, Shannon Briggs, and Trustee Joyce McMahon will be attending in the live feed, so there may be some votes that will happen through the live feed, and we'll just draw your attention to that as we go along. So I'd like to begin with my chairperson's remarks with a good evening and a welcome to the first board meeting of the 2024 calendar year. I hope that Christmas break provided time for fun and family and some resets for our staff, students, and caregivers here in SD 72. Returning from break on January 8th saw all staff in our district participating in professional development at Timberline Secondary School. This Indigenous-focused day of learning showcased local knowledge keepers and helped us as an educational community to understand better the experiences of Indigenous learners and connect our individual learning of local history to build inclusive practice for all of our students. In the confidential meeting, we were updated that 30 of the 38 presenters were local nation members, which was amazing. It was a great day to build relationships and ask questions, and I would like to celebrate the work of the Pro-D committee, led by Aaron Pickering and assisted by Jillian Kirk in the building of such an impactful day, so thank you. I would also like to take a moment to acknowledge the pressures placed on families with children who use public transit to commute to and from school. We recognize that there are impacts on attendance, but unfortunately do not have the capacity to offer additional busing routes. While job action between Uniform Local 114 and BC Transit continues, we are encouraged to hear that both sides have agreed to mediation dates on January 24th and 25th and hope that this dispute can be settled as soon as possible. This Sunday sees the launch of Campbell River Family Literacy Week 2024. The theme this year is Let's Have a Family Party and encourages families to participate in a week's worth of fun learning activities across the community. The week launches with a scavenger hunt package pickup at the Campbell River Sportsplex on Sunday, January 21st, and wraps with a free family swim at Strathcona Gardens on the 27th. This year's free community show, sponsored by the Tidemark Theatre, is a Mi'kmaq fiddler from Cape Breton named Morgan Tony. He's coming to throw an East Coast family kitchen party and share some information about his home and culture. All events throughout the week are free, and additional information can be found on the social media channels of the week's host, the Campbell River Literacy Association. And finally, as a reminder to parents with children who will be turning 5 in 2024, kindergarten registration begins the week of January 29th and goes until February 2nd. More information can be found on the school district website or by checking in at the offices of the school you'd like your child to attend during the last week of January. We look forward to welcoming you and your child as they begin their K-12 education here in Campbell River and surrounding region. Thank you for your time, and on to superintendent's remarks.
Thank you, Chair Reddy, and I think I'm going to start my remarks by piggybacking on some of the things that you were mentioning. First of all, great to start a new year here, and it was incredible for me to be able to start my very first day back of 2024 at Timberline Secondary School, partaking in professional development with an Indigenous theme. And the numbers you presented were almost correct. It was 28 presenters, including 20 sessions by local knowledge keepers. And elders. There were 3 online sessions, 3 self-directed learning sessions. The Campbell River Museum and 2 presenters from the Lower Mainland also came. Cortez Island spent the day of learning with Cahoose knowledge keepers on Cortez, and approximately 800 people participated or witnessed the speaker panel that happened in the gym at Timberline. 700 were in the gym and 100 were live streamed in the theater. SD 71 staff, SD 72 staff, twice I've done that, had between 1 and 4 sessions that they could have partaken of. There were also 15 teachers on call that took part because they were gifted with a grant to attend. So it was a very successful day of learning. I know the 2 sessions I went to were very rewarding and enriching, and it will stick with me for quite some time. So once again, hats off to the core professional development committee and Aaron and Jillian for really making that happen. One of the other things I wanted to piggyback on is kindergarten registration. As Chair Eddie mentioned, this year for the first time ever, we are going to have an online option. So parents are going to be able to register their kindergarten students online. There is information and videos provided on the district website that won't open until the last week of January, first week of February. But we're hoping to make that a new mode of registering throughout the district in coming years. So we're very interested to see how that goes. One of the other things I just had to mention, based on the local weather forecast, is snow day protocols. I would encourage everyone to check our district website for snow day protocols. We will try to have a message out by 6:30 tomorrow morning on whether our district will be closed or not. That'll be posted on the school district website. It'll also go out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. For those parents who have signed up for a parent portal app, if you've downloaded that, that will come to you directly. If all of that fails, we have the local radio stations, the River, the Eagle, and the Jet that you can check. And if you don't see an announcement by 7 a.m., you can consider that schools are open and running for the day. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Manning. Your first potential snow day call can make you very popular tomorrow.
Or not.
So on to agenda item 3, which is the approval of the minutes of December 19th. And the motion reads that the minutes of the meeting of December 19th, 2023 are hereby approved as circulated. May I have a mover? Trustee Gladish, seconded by Trustee Gillis. All those in favor? Thank you. Is there any business arising from the minutes? Seeing none, we'll move down to any additions or alterations to the agenda. No? And on to the approval agenda, and the approval of the agenda motion reads that the agenda is hereby approved as circulated. Trustee Harper, seconded by Trustee Gillis. All those in favor? So approved. On to Vice Chair Gillis regarding the report board decisions of January 16th, 2024 confidential.
Yes, the confidential meeting dealt with teaching, administrative and support staff changes and financial issues.
Thank you, Vice Chair Gillis. There's no correspondence or public submissions at this time, no additional agenda submissions. And I'd like to, on to 11A, I'd like to invite Associate Superintendent Morgan Kyle to introduce our elementary literacy coordinators.
Thank you, Chairperson Eddie.
Come on.
Yeah. It is with great pleasure to introduce some and reintroduce Christine Fraser and Audra Schroeder, who are our district teacher coordinators for elementary literacy. And this is the 3rd year of the work that they are doing with teachers in schools at the elementary level. And we have 2 specialists here with postgraduate work specific to literacy. And that expertise is being sought after in schools. And I just want to comment on the openness of so many of our teachers in our elementary schools to say, absolutely, help me in these pieces, and the patience and care that those teachers are doing because they care so deeply about the kids in their class. The work that Christine and Audra are being embedded in schools, the resources that have been developed, and the leadership of administrators in those buildings. Just this really coordinated alignment of literacy and improving literacy scores and literacy just in general for kids. It's just been tremendous, and we've got lots of room to grow and get better, but we are incrementally getting better because of the work of these two folks and the hard work of administrators and teachers in our schools. So they're going to share with you where that journey is within those 3 years and where we're at, where we're hoping to go to, and some of the things that they have done. So I'm going to pass it over to Audra and Christine.
Thank you, Morgan.
You're welcome, Audra.
Thank you. Yes, it's been our honor and privilege to be with our district literacy working group for 3+ years. I think when we started, Fraser's hair was curly. And yes, our job is very complex, but essentially it is supporting teachers as they make the best choices for literacy instruction that, like Morgan said, changes results for kids.
So early on, and I was just looking at the copy of the old strategic plan. I realized that there's a new one coming out. But when we were looking at it and thinking about the 3 priorities, especially priority 1, where we're tasked with improving student achievement, especially in literacy. And when we really look at the wording of this, it says that every student has strong foundational skills and core competencies. We took that foundational skills piece really literally when we were thinking about what we had to put in place. And of course, the framework and the development of the framework wasn't just our job. We had a working group that worked with us that consisted of teachers and principals and also our associate superintendent. At first, when we first started working on the framework, there was some resistance, and not only from teachers, but also even within our working group. And we really had to have those hard conversations and those discussions about what we wanted to get from this. So there was some resistance, but there was also a lot of excitement. People had been waiting for a long time for foundational skills and certainly phonics instruction to come into more play within our literacy instruction.
All right. So we've spent the last few years, actually, like Morgan said, in school, building relationships. And for the early adapters or adopters, it was easy to get into classrooms. Now, some of those more hesitant teachers, it's their first year with us. So the momentum is behind them as we work with them. So they're on a fast track, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, and also just in terms of building relationships, there's always new people coming in. Either they're TTOCs that have found themselves in a contract, or maybe in a
Switching grades.
yeah, switching grades. So there's always more people to make relationships with, and of course our administrators change schools as well. So there's always people to build with. And I have to say the decision we made, or I guess you made it, Morgan, a couple of years ago, to have us in a different school every day. So physically, Audra and I are in a different elementary school every day, just showing up, just being there to answer questions, to help people, as they go through their task of figuring out how to teach literacy, just being available in the hall, or to have an article when somebody's interested in something. If you look at both of our, if you look at both of our cars, we have a literal library in the hatch that we can flip up and grab a book and take into the school anytime. But that presence in schools has made all the difference in the world and for us getting into the classrooms.
A lot of incidental but impactful interactions to it.
Yeah. And it makes room for that continuous ongoing professional development, right? It's not just a one-off. We're there every week. And it's sometimes, I think that's probably a little, I think we're a little pushy sometimes because we're walking around saying, hey, don't forget about literacy. Hey, how can I help you? But being there and showing up has really, really made a big difference. And of course, I have to say something about our supportive literacy leadership, which we have in our administrators, who really have taken on, kind of taking us under their wing and saying, yeah, we're going to make this happen. How can we best utilize you? How can I find time for you to work with this teacher? How can I find time to get a little bit of a workshop going after school? Or how can I find time or the money to get some resources that you're suggesting? So it's very helpful.
Taking the balance. Is this where I talk about resources, I think?
Sure.
Okay, let's do it. So one of the changes that we've made in the last few years was introducing a few resources that came with a scope and sequence for teaching phonics, very explicitly, cumulatively in a system, which was new to lots of teachers. And a little story I have from one of our veteran teachers at Sandown, who's an awesome lady. She said she had a little fella who she had seen this type of student before, not quite getting the literacy, reading was tricky, on the verge of an actuality kind of guy, but his whole direction changed. She said for the first time in 30 years, because she was teaching explicit phonics, she said, when he read, I knew exactly what he needed so I could go to the next step with him. And she said that was the key for that little guy. He started asking to take books out to read at recess. He came in, he wanted to read. He was giving it a go at writing. So she said the rigor, the change in his perception was just a motivating factor for her. It was renewing as a teacher. So there's the joy that something explicit and looks very regimented. It has still the flexibility and joy that teachers, that we love to do. We love to see in our kids.
Yeah, and as you say that, we weren't expecting teachers to throw the baby out with the bathwater and just, take in this new form of instruction, but we wanted them to really retain all those high yield practices that we knew were doing good things for kids, but we just were missing that phonics piece. Now, I think what we've noticed with the instruction that people have really adopted the phonics now and gone gung-ho, and now they're starting to say, oh, okay, now I have to reach back and pull in some of those practices I had before because I understand it better now and I'm capable of doing that. And we're trying to really get teachers to think about what am I doing in my class that yields these high results, and maybe some of the things I just do because I've always done, that maybe aren't that efficient and maybe don't have that same kind of effect on the students. This is a biggie. I'll read it for you. So this is my grade 2 student, grade 2 teacher that I've been working with at Ocean Grove, actually. And she says, she sent me this quote the other day. I'm a teacher in the first decade of my career, fine-tuning the way I teach, all the while being bumped around to different elementary grades and taking time off to have my own children. Teaching children to read and write has always been the area I feel most pressure. And in the past, I've bounced around different ideas, trying to piece together what I can cover, what I can use to cover the skills necessary to help my students become confident readers and writers. Teaching intentional phonics skills with that's the University of Florida Literacy Institute, the UFly and the Flyleaf books, which the district has provided to every primary classroom, has taken the guesswork out of my teaching letter sounds and spelling. And for the first time, I feel confident that they are learning what they need in a logical sequence, and I'm able to refocus the time spent scrambling for resources into other areas of learning. The students seem to respond well to multimodal approach of the lessons. Some are auditory, some are written on whiteboards, presenting using the projector, and they feel more success with reading and writing. I think it's important that we always ask our teachers how they're, responding and how their students are responding to what we're trying to implement.
You should talk about Dibbles.
Oh, so we've been, as you guys know, I've been implementing Dibbles for the last, is it 3 years? 2 years, 2 years now. And so we looked at the data in the spring and we're currently collecting data now. We're in the second round of it as we speak. And the data is definitely showing an upward turn. I really expected when my history is working with a lot of data, and I really expected for us to kind of take a little bit of an implementation dip at the beginning, and we saw that a little bit. But now we see that our stats are rising. Kids are knowing more. I think a lot of teachers were really nervous about the Dibbles, really, they're very supportive of what we were trying to get at and how and why. But I think that attitude has really changed. I mean, there certainly is more areas for growth in different places. But I think more often than not, people are like, oh yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. I know my kids have made progress, so I really want to see that.
I'll just add
Yeah.
a tiny bit. The Dibbles is a screener that measures more in line with how primary teachers are teaching explicit phonics. So the alignment, I think, there is erasing the hesitancy to.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think because they are now doing their own DIBELS testing and looking at those results, they've got access to the data network that we use, the DIBELS data system through Amplify. They can take that, they can make graphs of their students' progress, they can, really take a deep dive into that. And even though we say it's a screener, boy, oh boy, I was doing DIBELS today with, I don't know, I probably did 20 kids, and I have a really good perspective about what is happening with the growth of those kids from doing that. So even though it's a screener, there's information to be formed.
Favorite, developing resources. So even though we're in schools every day, we have taken some time to develop resources, sometimes with teachers from the need they express, or when we're together and Fraser might have a couple of teachers needing something similar to my teachers. So we have come up with a lot of resources that we, along with the framework, have assembled in a supporting documents binder. So this is going to come, I think, to each school or at least each teacher. And we're leaving it here to have a peruse because I know you'll be just as excited as we are about it.
Yeah, and included, we've been creating like literacy-rich environments and what that looks like in schools, what it feels like, what you should be able to notice when you walk into a school, a classroom, a library, and we've also
really, can I just say, it's really a culture of learning.
yeah,
So we say literacy, but it's very a dynamic environment to learn in.
yeah.
These I really like too.
And these we've been working on for about a year, and what they are, and if people want to see them, you can, or we could pass them around. What they are is kind of a grade level snapshot of literacy. So I think for new teachers, or even teachers that are seasoned, they can take a look at that and say, either I'm on the right track, or oh boy, I never really thought about this aspect of literacy, and I need to make time for it in my program.
Another thing, Campbell River does have a lot of split grades.
Yeah,
So these this is let's say a map, but it's not written in stone. So it gives teachers flexibility to go between grades or describe their learning, their classroom learning in a way that if it doesn't match your outcomes in another grade.
and I think Audrey and I are really good about sharing the resources we develop and kind of fine tuning them with each other to keep the practice consistent and, making sure that the uniformity from class to class and school to school, there's some basis for that. Not at all taking away a teacher's autonomy to teach, in the way they find most appropriate, but just to give a little bit of framework to the framework, if you will.
Well, and the resources the district has purchased are embedded in the sample plan, so helps teachers incorporate new resources.
Mm-hmm. So now, like I said, we've been so focused on the phonics that, and I think we had to be. I think that's the only way teachers could really embrace it and encourage the growth of that in their classrooms. And now we're thinking about, leaning forward and thinking what it is that we need to work on now. There's still so much work to do. And one of the ways is to take this applied phonics and apply it in creative ways for kids, because have been doing a lot of
words.
Yeah, kind of a skill-based work, but I know that we need to get in there and again, bring back some of those practices that we were using that really engage kids and keep them motivated. And of course, we've been meeting with middle school teachers and also high school teachers about they're having similar issues in the middle school and high school with kids just being behind, and especially in foundational skills. So we've been meeting with them, trying to share some of the practices that we've been doing in elementary school so that they can learn how to do it as well. And that's had a very high yield as well. We just had a meeting in that room where you guys were before now and just before you. And we had probably
8 or 10.
Yeah, people, and they were so interested. And they've already been developing their own kind of extension to the framework. But we would like to continue work with that as well.
I think that's good. You know, I think this is almost our last one, which is good. But I have to say, last year, one of our highlights, I think, was professional development and talking to teachers and, you know, just facilitating a lot of chit chat between different groups. Was in this room, we had a kindergarten extravaganza that was attended by, I think, well, maybe 13 kindergarten teachers, and just getting them together to talk about what's happening for you, how do you deal with that, how are you using this new resource, just that powerful talk, getting people together. It felt like it was well worth coordinating.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you for your time.
Go past.
And just before you finish, we've had a minimum of 6 districts that have reached out to either Christine and Audra or somebody on our working group or myself around what we're doing, what resources we have, and the generosity of everybody on our working group and Christine and Audra to share with other districts and their interest in what we're doing and then seeing the results that we have, because we share those as well, has been, you know, an additional piece to all of this.
Absolutely, and I think the Island Literacy Network that we're part of, and we meet with folks all across the island and on the mainland as well. Share resources, share ideas, and right now we're working on a book project for local themed books for little people to learn that are decodable. And yeah, we really enjoy getting together with those colleagues, and we learn so much in doing that. So it's very valuable.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, ladies. So thank you, Audra and Christine, for the presentation. As you know, literacy is one of our primary objectives in the K-12 system. And thank you for your work to help raise the capacity of all educators and build a culture of learning in our elementary schools. On to elected and board matters. I'm sorry, I just have to get a little organized here. A bunch of stuff everywhere, like everywhere. It's like my work desk. So moving on to 12A, which we are very excited to have Superintendent Manning launch our 2024 to 2028 strategic plan.
Thank you very much, Chair Eddie, and I know the board is very excited to launch their strategic plan for 2024 to 2028. It's been a work in progress, and we've got some great feedback and support from the staff and the greater community on this. We thank them for that. This paper here. So first of all, one thing about a strategic plan is it's an ongoing process. So we had a previous strategic plan that ran up until 2019 to 2023. And sometimes we like to keep things in a strategic plan that were really good in the previous plan because we're continuing to work on them, or we want to continue to honor them. And this is definitely one of the pieces that we wanted to continue to honor. Curtis Wilson, who we were so fortunate to have him design the school district logo. And we wanted to continue to honor him with the logo conversation and how it came about. I was fortunate enough to meet Curtis in a school that I worked at, a wonderful artist, wonderful person. And I know that I have had comments made to me from around the province about School District 72's logo and how much people love it and are impressed by it. And reading the story behind the logo and knowing the meaning behind the logo makes it even more impactful. So that's a great continued feature of the strategic plan. The land acknowledgement. So this was something that we spent a long time on, and we recognize as a school district that encompasses a very large geographical area, we encompass the territories of several nations. And so the land acknowledgement reads, School District 72 operates throughout a large geographic area Campbell River and Quadra Island schools and our school board office are located on the traditional territory of the Liguido people. School District 72 also encompasses the traditional territory of the Cohoes, which is on Cortez, the Comox, which is up in Sayward, and the Hamalco, which is in Butte Inlet First Nations. And we just find it's important to acknowledge all those groups that do have territory within our vast region. A message from the board, just discussing the importance of the strategic plan and the focus of the strategic plan being on equity and really focusing on student achievement. You'll see the logo later on in this new plan that really ties all of the strategic goals with student achievement and with equity. There's our current chair, or current board there. So developing the plan, there was consultation with the broader community and input was sought. The board took that input back, created a draft of the plan, and boy, kicked that around for a while and had lots of discussions and meetings regarding that. We then took the plan back to the principals and vice principals for suggestions, reactions, comments. We got lots of great feedback from them. Brought it back to the board. The board relooked at the draft and incorporated many of the suggestions and comments that were made by principals and vice principals into the new plan. So there we have learning beliefs. Respectful relationships are fundamental to successful learning. Learning is an active and social process. All learners vary in their learning styles, prior knowledge and experiences, abilities and rates of development, and positive learning behaviors and attitudes lead to greater student independence, success, and lifelong learning. I don't think anyone can argue with those learning beliefs. Just an interesting note for people on the mission, vision, and values. The board wanted to take some time to really delve into those and look at what the mission, vision, and values should be moving ahead in the next 4 years. So we'll be continuing to embark on that process throughout the beginning of 2024. And there will be an addendum to the strategic plan. We'll be adding the mission, vision, values statement as an addition to the plan. And in the future, it will become part of the hard copy booklet that was just given to trustees tonight in a confidential meeting. There's the graphic I was speaking about. We have 3 main strategic priorities: honor Indigenous worldviews and perspectives, student-centered learning environments, and evolving for tomorrow. All of those pieces fit together towards student achievement and are encircled by equity as we try to search for equity for all of our students throughout the district. Equity is an interesting word, and the board felt very strongly that it needed to be defined because some people use equity and equality to mean the same thing, and they are not. So it's clearly stated we define equity as meeting every student with what they need to develop to their full academic and social potential, removing barriers and adapting to their individual needs and circumstances. And the equity commitment goes on to talk about the board's commitment to equity and how important that is. And then we move on to our central purpose, which is student achievement. That is actually the goal. That's what the School Act, what the Ministry of Education tells us our job is. The number 1 job of school boards and school districts is to focus on student achievement. So continuous improvement in student success is at the heart of all that we do in School District 72. We will be striving to ensure that every student has core competencies and a strong sense of self so that they leave school with dignity and purpose to succeed in life. And we move on to our first listed strategic priority, honoring Indigenous worldviews and perspectives. It's nice in this strategic plan compared to the previous strategic plan. The board was much more specific regarding their goals and their measures because I think we all want to be able to, at the end of the school year, look at what our measures are to know that we've accomplished the goals. And if the measures show improvement, that's great. But if the measures show that we're stagnating, we need to take a closer look at that and really redefine what we're measuring and redefine the strategies we're using to help improve those measures. So many of the measures include Indigenous 5 and 6 year completion rates, improved how are we doing annual report data. The how are we doing report comes out annually, usually in December, and gives an incredible amount of detail on how Indigenous students are performing in the school district, on reserve, off reserve, male, female. It breaks down just about every measure that you can. Very informative. So that's a great document to be looking at. We're going to be looking at the percentage of students who get exposed to Indigenous language learning, the percentage of Indigenous parents and caregivers and community who are reporting a sense of welcome within the schools. And that is done via a ministry report that comes out every single year, student learning survey. And there's also a survey for parents. And we also just recently put out a survey. The last measure we had listed there is increased percentage of staff who self-identify as Indigenous. We just put out a survey this fall asking staff to respond and self-identify, and we're looking forward to getting the totals there. It may re-survey just to see if we have a better handle on who the staff are that we have working for us and how that represents Indigenous learners in the broader community. The next priority is student-centered learning environments. And so this is about believing and celebrating and nurturing students' individual gifts and talents, their attributes, and ensuring that these are reflected in the educational opportunities that we provide, value, and measure. By seeing and supporting students as a whole individual with their own unique experience and needs, we strive to create an inclusive and empowering environment for their growth and success. We want kids to come to school and be excited to be at school. We want to offer them programming that excites them. At the elementary level, most students are, intuitively excited to come to school. It's a new opportunity, a new experience. As they progress and get older, they're looking for things that challenge, interest, and motivate them. So it's our goal as a school district to provide them opportunities that do just that. We have measures, including the ministry satisfaction survey, the EDI, which is the early years development instrument, the middle years development instrument. We have student learning survey results that we'll be looking at. We'll be looking at developing student principal advisory councils in all of our schools. Many schools are already developing those this current year. We have a student or superintendent student leadership committee that meets. We have a meeting actually on Thursday, our second meeting. So we'll be speaking to them and asking them poignant questions about this strategic plan and what they would like to see and how they see it being actually fulfilled or how it's working for them. And then we'll be looking at enrollment in specialized programs. We offer a number of specialized programs in the district. We offer a number of programs of choice. So all of those things we feel really caters to student-centered learning environments and meeting the students where they're at and trying to give them a fulfilling and interesting learning experience. And the last priority, we call it evolving for tomorrow. We're laying the foundation today for what schools and our district must look like in the future. As society and the planet's needs continue to shift, we will explore new ways to address those needs. We seek to embrace a growth mindset, and in our commitment to continuous improvement, evolve and blend new methodologies with the positives of past practice. I like this one because it's not the old proverbial throwing the baby out with the bathwater. We're taking what we've done well and what is good for student learning, but we're looking to evolve it for how society is changing. This is a lot of the goals we hit here are core fundamental goals and values that the ministry has as well. A grade level proficiency in literacy, grade level proficiency in numeracy, developing a culture of innovation and progressive practices, valued partnerships, inclusive environments, decisions and educational opportunities that align with environmental stewardship, especially, when we're facing some of the planetary challenges that we face. This is a really broad, large goal, but everyone should remember too, the strategic plan is a broad-based plan. It doesn't get down into the fine details. It just is the map that guides us in all of our work. And we have lots of measures that improve 5th and 6th year completion rates, improve cohort data, and through the literacy framework. We just heard a great presentation on literacy from a couple of dedicated teachers, improves results in the FSAs. There's lots of data that we can point to see how we're doing in this area. So that is the board's strategic plan, and the next steps will be the rollout of the plan. So we're looking forward to rolling it out on our websites and our social media feeds, to all of our schools, getting these hard copy booklets to all of our schools. We have posters throughout the district that showcase the old strategic plan, and we've got brand new posters on the way that we'll be replacing in all of our schools. And we're really looking forward to working with this strategic plan to make it a live, living document that will really see us in good stead for the next 4 years.
Thank you, Superintendent Manning. Is there any comment from trustees? Any comments? I'm very excited about the strategic plan. I think that it builds well on the foundation laid in the past strategic plan, highlighting again our desire and commitment to improving literacy and numeracy, honoring Indigenous worldviews and perspectives, and building and evolving, recognizing the evolving culture of education. I think it's a really great starting point to continue the work into 24-28. And I'm quite excited about realigning the mission, vision, and values of School District 72. For those of you who had looked at the last statements, they were pretty antiquated and they weren't really reflective. They weren't something that the board felt we could or staff could get behind and really embrace as the mission, vision, and values of our district. So thank you very much for the hard work put in from our communications officer, as well, for all the work done getting it to print. And moving on to 12B, which is the Board of Governance Policy Review Committee recommendation. This policy came forward at the December 19th meeting. It is, to just coin it, it is actually it's called a whistleblower. It's a public interest disclosure, but it's a whistleblower policy committee in response to new government legislation. And I'll maybe pass that on to Trustee Gillis.
I believe we have seen this circulated, and I would now ask that the board adopt the board's government policy recommended edition of the government policy 34, the public interest disclosure.
Thank you. And just as a quick question, Ms. Patrick, do we have Trustee McMahon or Briggs online?
So they haven't submitted through a Q&A. I'm just looking for attendees.
Trustee Briggs is going to send it to me on Teams.
Okay. Just checking. All right, so I'm going to move forward with the motion. And the motion reads that the board adopt the Board Governance Committee's recommended edition of the Board Governance Policy 34, which is the public interest disclosure. May I have a mover, please? Trustee Gladish, and a seconder? Trustee Gillis? And all those in favor? And Trustee Briggs for quorum?
Just waiting.
Right, okay. Maybe we'll come back to that agenda item.
Want me to call her?
You could call her.
Sure.
We will.
It's coming. I have it.
Oh, do you?
Yes.
Okay, so trustee Briggs and trustee Harper, your vote on the board adoption of the board governance committee policy. Yes, okay, so that would be quorum. So passed. On to item 14A, which is finance warrant dated November 30th, 2023. The finance warrant, of course, is our business department's way of being transparent with expenses through the school district. So this is for the month ending November 30th, 2023. Your department's a bit behind. They're usually.
There's holidays in there.
So the motion reads that finance warrant number 5 dated November 30th, 2023 be accepted as presented. May I have a mover? Trustee Gillis, seconder. Trustee Gladish. So all those in favor? So moved. And on to the 2023-24 final operating grant announcement.
So we've received our final grant. So we build our preliminary budget in the spring based on estimated student numbers. And when September comes, we're funding for who actually shows up in our schools. And so our budgets will change. They can go up or they can go down. But just before Christmas, just after the last board meeting, we received confirmation on what they were gonna fund. So we know based on our FTE or student counts, whether things numbers are gonna go up and down. One of the things that we did know, when we was that our enrollment numbers had not changed a ton. So in the first column. Got it. Yeah. So in the first column, the white column, that was our early numbers. The yellow is what we're being updated on. And you can see very small difference between our FTE numbers. And so our overall enrollment increase was about $305,000. It's up, which is good. It's not up as much as what we would like to see, but based that white column, we had actually already increased it about 65 FTE from the prior year. And then we are about another, 30 FTE from our preliminary. So it's headed and trending in the right direction. So that was a small increase, and that increase, I can just point out, covers, we have brought a couple things to the board for budget approval. And so that 305 basically covers health and safety requests that we had made. And then another, this is a more significant change, is our special education counts went up in 2 out of our 3 categories. So you can see that overall it went up $913,000. And that is bigger than normal. Like we have a pretty good idea of from at the end of one year when we're forecasting for the next where we're gonna be. But one of the trends we're seeing is we get new students throughout the year. A lot of them are coming with needs and with designations, and so we're playing a little bit of catch up there. So that funding increased $913,000. When we asked for the district principal learning support services, we did know that this was that this funding was going to go up. And after September 30th and October 15th, once we've gone through and submitted the data, we knew that we would be up quite a bit in that learning support services. And then there's a third part. So this part down here, I actually, because I have it over, you don't see it, but supplied by Ministry of Ed. So that is local geographic factors. It's salary supplement factors. And you can see that it didn't change a lot, which is really, really good news because Those are the items that we have a whole lot less control and that we don't know what it's gonna be when it comes to this final grant. We've had the salary supplement swing $600,000 up and down year to year. Our geographic factors, which is this one, is usually pretty consistent, but that can swing a little bit as well. So overall, our increase is, on our funding side is $1.2 million. And that's just based on student numbers, because you'll notice that the, grant per student hasn't changed. So overall positive. Now, what this does and where it puts us is we have asked the board for additional funds. So this covers those items. We know based on the final, the financial statements that we were in a structural deficit. We had a pretty significant benefit deficit that this will help address and help cover. As well as we're just gonna have some general inflation going up. So this puts us in a good spot. We're gonna be bringing to the board the final budget. So we'll include this and we'll have all the updated expenses at the end of February. So at that point, we'll have a much better idea on what our financial position is likely to be to the end of this year. But it also lets us know where we're headed next year.
I do have a couple of questions, Kevin.
Yeah.
So I know that, I understand that ST 72 tends to be a bit of a transient school district. So the vulnerable student counts and the additional education supplements, are those only reported on once a year? Like we submit them September 30th, October 15th, and that's our final count number that the government funds?
And that's actually a really good question, because this year some districts are facing some massive challenges. So September 30th, our general student funding is only counted once. So in September 30th, the bums and seats is what you get funded for. I heard at the funding announcement that one school in Metro has seen 220 new students between September 30th and December 15th. They don't get additional funding for that. But when you get to the vulnerable students, special education numbers, as those increase, we will get funded on the net increase. So if it drops, we don't lose any money. If we gain one and lose one, we don't get any additional funding. But if that net change is up, they do provide us with additional funding for that. We will receive additional account funding for distributed learning, so the distance learning programs that we run as well, as those are counted throughout the year. So it's some programs are adjusted throughout the year.
Can I just ask about the vulnerable student equity of opportunity? What is that budget line? Like, where does that come from? Like, is that for a specific category or is it?
So that is provided to the district. It is not a big change. You can see there's no FTE associated. So basically there's a provincial amount that was given and we get typically we're about 1% of that.
And is it a special purpose fund?
It's not a special purpose fund, but it is meant to support vulnerable learners. And that kind of came probably a precursor to and not that it's intended for Feeding Futures, but for school and family affordability, but it was a very early funding grant for additional supports for vulnerable learners.
Trustee Ellis?
Now, the English as a second language funding, is that still have a limited term on it, 5 years? Okay. And so does that indicate that we have had very little growth or change?
So what that actually indicates is that our our director of Indigenous who submits the ESL is very accurate at her
Okay.
estimating. So yeah, she's great with numbers and yeah, she basically kids, she knew who was coming in, she knew who the new students moving in were. So yeah, of course, in our community, we don't get a lot of, new Canadians. So it's a fairly small program and again, she's very accurate with her estimating.
I guess I was thinking, I'm conscious through some service organizations that there are some immigrant families that are now going to be residing in the community or will ultimately be, and whether or not that gets factored in partway through the year.
So for ESL, next year, we'll see that if they are refugees, we actually are provided with additional funding later in the year as the new families arrive.
Any further questions?
And Secretary Treasurer Patrick, just so you know, several of us attended seminar on budget and financial management, and we were taught how to ask probing questions. How did we do?
Okay. Very good.
You're also told to celebrate our
Yes.
business department.
That's, yeah.
Mind you, he was a little biased.
Yes.
Thank you so much. So moving to the minor capital plan amendment.
Yeah, so this one's a good one about what tenacity and advocacy can do. So what we're asking for is our third amendment. We're asking for the board to make a resolution for our third amendment to a minor capital plan. What this most recent amendment is about and for is we have a shared piece of equipment at Heritage Lands at Timberline with the college. And they put an application to replace this. It's $1 million piece of HVAC equipment. And the bids came in higher than what they had been approved for funding. So they were looking for us, it is a shared piece, to cover a portion of it. Normally, we would have just gone to our annual facility grant, but kind of knowing that ministry capital funds at times aren't fully used, that sometimes late year for basically shovel-ready projects, they will approve some additional funding in place of those unused funds. And we got it. So we were approved for an additional $230,000. So that will save us in our annual facility grant. It'll allow us to do other things for our schools. It will be a contribution, or at least paying a share for it's a chiller, which is a air conditioner HVAC unit at Heritage Lands. So yeah, so this is some good. So we're looking for a resolution to amend the minor capital plan.
And we do have a motion for that. And the motion reads that the board approved the 2023-24 minor capital plan amendment submission as outlined in the summary provided by Secretary Treasurer Patrick. May I have a mover? Trustee Gladish, seconded. Trustee Harper, all those in favor? Thank you. Yeah, so approved. We will take the additional money to assistant facilities always. So looking at the agenda, that does complete our items on this meeting's agenda. Are there, sorry, I have to put on my glasses to see. Are there any questions online or from the gallery on agenda items?
There are no questions online. I've just been conversing with one of the trustees, Trustee McMahon, and providing her instructions to text Natalie with her vote for the last one.
Thank you. And Ms. Craddock.
So I apologize, I didn't have an opportunity to look at the minutes prior to the next meeting. But just to make note that I did make some comments about some concerns around AI at the last meeting during question period. And I had asked at the time if there would be a resources provided to teachers and support staff around those concerns. And the conversation kind of moved on, so it never got answered. assuming that's something that the district is going to provide, but it's not in the minutes, so I'm just making you aware of that for start. And then thank you, Jeff, for your presentation on the strategic plan. There's some great stuff there for sure, and look forward to digging into it deeper, rolled out. I'm assuming, but I'm gonna ask, that somewhere in that document, there is mention of childcare and the fact that we are now encompassing that within education, and we certainly are on board with that within our district. So I'm just asking the question that, is there somewhere in the strategic plan that makes reference to childcare?
There isn't anything in the strategic plan that specifically mentions childcare. We recognize as a school district that it's an integral part of our district. We just put, several $1 million worth of infrastructure in for childcare. So it is definitely something that's in operations. I think that one kind of fits under the umbrella of this strategic plan is this big overarching document, but within that, we recognize as a leadership team that childcare is an ongoing issue, and we're in it as full as any district in the province, and we're going to continue to go down that road.
I mean, my thinking is that maybe it can fall under student effort. I mean, there's areas that we were talking about that actually there could be places where it makes sense to fit in. Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
In the funding, the second to last agenda item, the funding piece, I noticed that last year, there was some adult education, and I noticed this year did not, I guess what is the definition of adult education? Is it accurate on there that we don't currently have anybody that falls into the adult education category for funding? Because that's what the document appears to look like, but I may be misreading it.
I could actually speak to that. So as you know, the continuing education department that used to run out of Rob Ron, it no longer exists. And it's my understanding that SD 72, when a student reaches an adult age outside of the K-12 education system, they are referred to a distance learning program for that credentialing, typically through SD 71 NIDES program. They have a really vigorous distance learning program, and an association at Rob Ron sees a lot of those learners that come back and then helps to guide them into the NICE program should they wish to achieve their adult dogwood post grade 12.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I can't see the speaker. Hey.
Crystal Smith, so are you? Cascu, Adeg, of Madam, don't Watku. Is provided if it did go. Formato, that was open. Nu Crystal Smith, Guy Glenn Loch, Cascu, Adeg, of Madam, Gugwolin Loch, Clamato. Clamato. I'm standing here before you today, tired. And it's not the kind of tired that you get, that gets swept away after a good night's rest, but the kind of tired that rests in your soul. I am an educator. I hold my master's degree in educational administration and leadership with a focus on Indigenous leadership. And I received this degree at UBC. So we used and worked with the Squamish Nation in the Lower Mainland. I have taught in a number of schools since my graduation, some in this very district as an on-call teacher. I love working with students. I love learning. and I come from a place of Indigenous understanding where the teacher and student are one and the same. I approach my classrooms this way, and I approach my life this way. I'm standing here because colonization is exhausting. Working for a colonial entity is exhausting. Working around colonial mindsets is exhausting. I am tired. Tired of having to pick up the slack that so many organizations are leaving, and this district is no different. You are slacking, and it is becoming increasingly harmful to Indigenous bodies within your district. I worked in your district, and it was harmful. I did not feel seen or heard. I'm a parent in your district, and it is harmful. I do not feel seen or heard. Your district has reached out to Indigenous parents on multiple occasions, asking how you can facilitate more involvement, and I participated. Yet when I got more involved, I was harmed. I am tired. I'm standing here to say that I'm done. As a parent, I will no longer work with PAC or DPAC because these places are unsafe, and I'm tired of being harmed. I've decided to stop working, not just in this district, but in any district, because it was harming my soul. I'm at a place in my life where I want some semblance of peace, some comfort in my day-to-day life where I'm struggling to survive colonization. I am actively raising my children in a world that harms them. And I'm doing everything in my willpower to take the brunt of the harm so that they don't have to feel it. I will no longer take part in colonial systems that harm me. I want more from our society. I want more from the parents in this district, and I want more from this district. I spoke about the district's lack of effort in acknowledging these lands as unceded territory. And I spoke up at a DPAC meeting only to be silenced and ignored. And still today, in your new strategic plan. I later received a letter from the superintendent of this district, which, in short, said your emotions were big and we're sorry you felt them. Whether that was the intent, that's how it was received. Where was the apology? Where is the learning? It also said the district and employees have non-instructional days geared towards Indigenous knowledge. Yet it was your superintendent, associate superintendent, who didn't understand the importance of unceded territory. And the Indigenous district principal, who didn't know about the Douglas treaties. Obviously, non-instructional days are not enough. And having a parent ask for more shouldn't be dismissed. You have stated in your past strategic plan and this future strategic plan that honoring Indigenous views and perspectives is important. But how was I honored? How are the nations being honored? As stated, I am tired and I will no longer do the work for you. I will not allow this hurt to continue, and I will walk away and hope that this serves as a wake-up call. This district needs to do more to ensure the safety of their Indigenous employees, their Indigenous caregivers, and the Indigenous children. Until I see action being taken, I'm leaving these unsafe places. And I want to make it clear that the schools in which my children attend, the teachers that they have created a safe spot. created a safe place for my children. So my issue is not with these teachers. It is not with the support staff. It is with the idea that your higher ups, that the district, and that the school board fails to recognize this as unceded territory. This is not Campbell River. This is Clamato. Clamato. It was never ceded, and it should be stated as such at every meeting, in every documentation, everything that you do. This is the unceded territory of the Liquito people.
Thank you for your words. Something that I reflect on. Thank you for your courage for coming forward and speaking those words. And as a colonialist, as a person that holds the position that I currently hold, I lean in to those hard conversations. I believe that we need to hear conversations like that. Perhaps this was not the right venue because we can't have discussion to start to come to solutions to help to address some of the concerns you've brought forward. But I do honor your honesty, and hope that instead of just dismissing the system that really, and the group of people that really wish to do our best to change the practices that have caused so much harm, that you instead will help lean towards us and have conversations. And we may not always agree, and we may not always be able to address your concerns in the immediate, but we can listen, and that is our responsibility. Thank you for your words. Are there any further questions or comments from the gallery? Andrea.
Just a question for the board that I'd like you to consider. With traditional, maybe the board has created policy within this body. And then after that, after policy is created, there's often an ask from the stakeholders for feedback. Have we reached a place where maybe it's more appropriate to have seats at the table rather than doing it after the fact? Actually having that opportunity to be part of the bigger conversation around policy.
Again, another big ask, and off the side of the agenda. And again, something that we need to discuss because we do lean into our rights holders and our stakeholders for feedback. And we do hear that feedback very sincerely and do our best to address the concerns as we're writing policy. But it is outside of the governance model that is recognized by the K-12 education system. So those are bigger conversations that can't be had at a singular board meeting. Can there be revisions to systems? Absolutely, there can be, but it doesn't start by coming to a public meeting and asking, like, this is something we need to have conversations about before we move forward to advocate together alongside
Thank
each
you, I
other.
appreciate that. I just planting the seed.
Thank you very much. So with that, may I have a motion for adjournment? Trustee Harper, so adjourn.